Lecture 2, we are continuing with the General Code of Conduct, Part B. So now speaking of financial interests that may be received or paid. So an FSP may only receive the following things: commission or fees that are authorized under various statutes. You can see the acts there. If no fees are paid, such fees can be agreed by the client in writing. So a client doesn't necessarily have to give them the fees that are legislated. They can agree in writing, as long as at any time during their relationship that agreement can be terminated at the discretion of the client. If you are rendering services for a third party, you get fees or a salary remuneration that is reasonable to rendering those services. Immaterial financial interests are contained under there. Remember, that's under 1,000 Rand for a calendar year. And then it says, for any other financial interests, this is the catch-all, for which consideration, fair value, or remuneration that is reasonably commensurate to the value of the interest is paid at the time of the receipt thereof. So if the FSP receives something that is of value, that must be included in their remuneration. It says here, an FSP may not offer any financial interest to a representative. So for example, if you have a financial services provider that offers various products from a range of different product suppliers, the product supplier needs to make sure that the FSP doesn't get a benefit from giving preference to their specific product. So it says here, give preference to the quantity of business secured. So you don't want to have more given to one over the other without having regard to the quality of the service that they render to the clients. So for example, if you represent one specific product supplier, that's not an issue. The client knows that you are offering that supplier's products. But if you are representing 3 suppliers, you need to keep the client's risk profile in mind when you suggest a product for them. So it says here, if you give preference to a specific supplier when you represent one or more suppliers, or if you give preference to a specific product. So you always need to keep in mind your client's risk profile and make sure that the product that you recommend to them is suitable. Here we are talking about the conflict of interest management policy. It says here, every FSP other than a representative needs to adopt, maintain, and implement a conflict of interest management policy. This policy needs to provide for a couple of things. So it has to talk about how you manage conflicts of interest. How do you identify the conflicts? And what measures have you taken to avoid such conflicts? They need to be spelled out, and everyone needs to know what needs to happen, because remember, if there is a conflict of interest, you need to inform the client in writing, and you need to tell the client what steps you have taken in terms of the conflict of interest management policy. It talks about measures for disclosure of conflicts of interest. Remember, you must do it in writing, so it has certain measures that you need to take when disclosing it. What qualifies as a conflict of interest? Because here in the General Code of Conduct, it gives you very generalized conflicts of interest, but in your company you may have something a bit more specific. The policy also lists all the FSP's associates that hold an ownership interest and the nature and extent of their interest, so that everyone knows that those people that have an ownership interest in the company, it will cause a conflict of interest. And obviously this policy must be drafted in a way that is comprehensible and easy for everyone there to understand. So the policy needs to be adopted even for a sole proprietor. So no matter the size of your entity, and the FSP themselves needs to ensure that all the employees and representatives are aware of the policy, and they must ensure that they monitor this and they conduct a review annually. So if there is something that has changed in a policy, generally what a company will do is when you turn on your company computer, a notice will come up and say we have changed something in our conflict of interest management policy, or they will call a meeting with the various sections of the company or management to make sure that everyone is informed of the conflict of interest management policy. They can even send out a circular email to say that they have changed these things in the policy, or this is a reminder of what the policy says. So now we're talking about duties with regards to other matters in the General Code of Conduct. You must remember when dealing with an FSP, they are giving you a service. And at the beginning of the service, you have signed a contract with them. And this service needs to be rendered in accordance with that contractual relationship. So you cannot do anything less or more than what you have contracted to do. And you must also keep in mind that your client's interests will always take priority over your interests. All transactions of the client need to be accounted for. And the FSP or representative may not deal in financial products for their own benefit on the basis of advanced knowledge, even if it's with a client when dealing with non-public, price-sensitive information. So that deals with insider trading. So remember, if an FSP or a client has that knowledge, they may not deal. So it talks about appropriate systems and procedures in place. So you need to have systems and procedures in place that will record all verbal and written communication to the client. So when you are phoned by an FSP, it says these calls are recorded for quality and assurance procedures. So they need to have those procedures in place to make sure that all their calls are recorded, and those recordings, along with all other client documentation, must be kept for a period of 5 years. It also talks about clients' confidential information. They cannot be disclosed without the client's written consent. So previously, many years ago, you could sell a list of your clients' phone numbers to another company to say, well, here are my clients. They are interested in a funeral policy. Why don't you try and sell them a gap cover policy? So they would sell the lists of the client's phone numbers. Now you're not allowed to do that. You need the client's written consent in order to do that. And most importantly, you must always remember to act honestly, professionally, and with and give regard to the convenience of the client. So you don't want to phone a client at 6 o'clock in the evening when you know that they're going to be having dinner with their family. Keep the client in mind when communicating with them.